Hey,
Yeah.
John Gubbs here, Dakota Grappler, coming to you with our Sunday breakdown show. We're going to talk a lot of wrestling, try to get it done as quick as we can, but lots of things went on this weekend. Basically, I was at the Rotary all weekend. We're here to talk wrestling, have some fun, and those that are watching, thought about putting a little link out there. If somebody actually, I could open this up and somebody could click in and they could be a special guest. And I did have a couple people that kind of wanted to do that. So if you're looking for a chance to do an open question, and if you're a big wrestling fan, that's the people that are watching this, feel free. I'm going to actually post a link right on the message board here. And that will actually bring you in, and you, if you do show up, and in the background, you probably won't be on live. You'll be able to hear. It's pretty simple. So I actually put that out there this tonight, so somebody could come in and ask a special question. Then, if you come in and you're not appropriate, I will actually dismiss you. Other than that, it's just here to have fun. We're here to talk wrestling, here to promote the sport, and be good actually to the sport. Other than that, two guests tonight. We got Bill Holton. We've seen both these guys on before, and we got Tom Schoenhard. They can do their quick intro however they want, introduce themselves, and then we're going to talk wrestling. Okay, Bill, I'll let you go first.
Hi, Bill Holton here from Central North Dakota. I'm sure everybody kind of has an idea who I am now. Just obviously a huge wrestling fan. I've been around the sport a long time. Follow probably more college than I do anything these days, but I do spend a lot of time following North Dakota wrestling too. Probably more Class B than Class A, but both for sure. And following more South Dakota stuff than I have in the past, just because of what we're doing. It's been great for me.
Okay, awesome. And then we got Tom on the far side. Let him introduce himself.
Yep, Tom Schoenhard. I'm live out in Rapid City, West River guy, and just doing my best to promote the sport. Had met a ton of great people, obviously Bill and John, and just getting a chance to meet people throughout the tournaments and get the brackets posted out there so all the rankings guys can get their stuff and also everybody can see what happened on their bus ride home or on their Sunday morning paper on the Grappler, I like to say, and see kind of what went on out there and kind of dig into the weeds a little bit, not just know the team scores and who beat who, but look through the bracket and kind of see, what kids look good and what kids, maybe had a tough weekend or whatever. So good stuff.
No, awesome. I haven't thanked you for that. You've done a great job putting up those brackets and get them in PDFs so people can, go through them quick. Because I tell you what, going through track and back and forth, people have trouble getting those results and going back and forth, and you have one stop to catch a whole tournament in a bracket is actually really nice. I've been appreciative too, because I used to go back to track and try to get as many on as I could, and then put them in PDF, and it takes some time. So I do really appreciate that, Tom.
I wish they would change the dual format so that you could do that for the duels, because it's very painful to get the dual stuff out, and we won't even talk about Flow. They're a great website for content and everything that they do, but it is it's very difficult to get stuff out of there that you'd like to have people see. I don't know if that's because they protect the content or what, but it's rough to get that stuff out of there.
No, if you want the newspapers to see it, I think it should make it easy, because it's to promote it. And maybe they need to say, guess what, if you want to post this, put a little link for us too. It'd be an easy trade-off for get more people to them. I think that'd be really, really wise of them to do that. I know our newspapers don't cover enough wrestling. In fact, our local news, and I'm going to slam them here tonight, KFYR and KX, we had two basically television stations right here in Bismarck not stop at the Rotary Wrestling Tournament, put results or highlights or anything for 2 days. And so if anybody's out there, they need to get a message. I sent one message, and I'm going to send another one to both of the stations. I've kind of planned out how I was going to write them a letter of disappointment to, not the newspaper because he does a good job, but I mean the two television stations. That's not right.
That's a little bit strange. I know that in the past they have been there. Mm-hmm. Never as much coverage as any of us want to see, but I remember seeing, coverage on Friday night of them showing the semis or showing, highlights of the semis. And then, because I would be staying there on Friday night, so I would always see that. And then Saturday, Saturday evening news, the tournament did get done early enough that they could get, they could get some coverage in there and have people there. And I remember that many times. I guess I don't know what happened this year, why they weren't there, and I'm not sure if they were there last year or not. But that's this is the microphone we need to use right now. I mean, everybody that's listening and watching, get a hold of those guys at those stations in Bismarck and let them know. I mean, we all know that it's Bismarck is a wrestling hotbed all year long, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be covering that tournament.
That's so true. No,
I would even add that I've even contemplated maybe working with the sports person at Rapid City here at the Journal. We've gone a couple weeks without much coverage, and they always like to rely on the coaches for the scores, and they kind of say, well, they don't get back to me. Well, they're in there, and we're wrestling every weekend, so if we can direct you to the track website and you can pull stuff out, a lot of papers will just cut and paste that out, for results for people to see. And and I, with texting today, some of these guys can even text the coaches and get a quote, from the coach, and I think we're in that age now where you could do that stuff. You don't necessarily have to be there to interview them or even call them on the bus ride home if they've got time. But, we really need to do our best to showcase those athletes locally, and just let them know what's going on so that, you get the fan base following, so they show up for the duels and they're excited about things.
No doubt. I don't know, you guys pay attention to wrestling memes or not, but there was a wrestling meme I had seen with this one guy standing in front of their introducing. He's got one microphone in front of him, national champion, did whatever, and doing through this, he's the Fargo champion. He's this, one microphone, and they just won the state championship. What are your comments? And then right beside it's the second meme with a ton of microphones, just 20, 30 microphones, as many as you can get. And they've got a guy that's a basketball coach standing there. And he goes, we are one win away from qualifying for the region tournament. and it's kind of a funny meme saying, guess what? That's how it is. It's been that way forever. And since I was a kid, I remember our local newspaper having more in a small town in Napoleon, North Dakota, would have everything possible wrestling. And that's because the coach would turn it in. But you'd also then, if you look at the Bismarck Tribune, they'd have a 1-inch column of all the wrestling results, and you'd have 2 pages of all the basketball results from around the whole state. And I'm going, something had to change. And that's part of why I do Dakota Grappler. And so, well, before I want to hop off that bandwagon a little bit, but let's talk how the Rotary went. I know I enjoyed the weekend a ton. Sydney, let's give them their kudos. That is probably one of the best teams I've seen in a long time. Guy Melby's done a great job in that small town. What do you guys think?
Well, I wasn't there to see them, but we talked about it going in that they were probably going to be the team to beat, and they were obviously dominant. I mean, they won the tournament by 40, 50 points, whatever it was, over Bismarck High.
90, whatever. It was pretty high.
Oh, wait, yeah, no, yeah, you're right. It was like 80 points. It was 40 points going into the second day. And, and not just Bismarck High being a great team. Rapid City Stevens, their Watertown looked good. There's a lot of good teams that were there. And they just really put it on them. So, yeah, very, very impressed with Sydney. And I've always been impressed with Coach Melby and that program. And looking at the wrestlers that they have, they are not a heavily upperclassmen dominated team. So we're going to be watching this for a while.
Yep. Yeah, I think I read in the paper they had 4 seniors last year, so they knew they were going to be good coming back. And one thing I noticed about their wrestlers, and this isn't true of all of them, but they were very patient, confident. They looked in pretty good shape. They didn't really look gassed per se, like they were cutting a ton of weight. But, just in general, I thought, they wrestled confident, and I know them coming from another state, and I think they travel well. They're not afraid to travel even as an elementary or middle school dual team. But, I don't think they were out of their element at all for sure there, not knowing, who some of those kids were. I know, some of the kids we wrestled this weekend, we've never seen them, probably may not ever see them again, but they looked like they belonged for sure. There was a lot of good kids, good wrestling. They were tough. And even when they were getting beat and there wasn't a lot of them that did, they would wrestle to the whistle all the way to the end. They'd get a takedown even if they were down a few points, even though it wouldn't matter. So, that's something you can't I mean, you can coach that, but sometimes, you got to have it. It's got to be in the kid. You know what I mean?
I think it's built into the kid and the culture of the program. I think you see that in lots of places. And I'm not saying it gets expressly coached, but I think it's in the culture of the program. And I think it surely is in that program.
Yeah, that is one thing that I had mentioned in my broadcast yesterday, that there were some guys that were down, but they do not stop. They always have some belief that, guess what, I'm going to win some little victory, if that's that last takedown, if it's that last escape, even though if the final score isn't that way. I saw very good sportsmanship on their part. I watched them lose a couple really tough matches, and it wasn't a big deal. And I watched the one kid look right over to his coach to get coached when it was done. And that's a hard thing to teach too, saying, guess what, no matter what happens here, come visit with me. We're going to make sure that, guess what, that's what happened, and we're going to work on that, because they all had the idea, if they went down with an L, that there was something they could learn from it. And I really watched close on that. Guy Melby, I talked to him just for a short amount of time at about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. And it was just a quick conversation about, are your wrestlers prepared and whatever else? And he goes, this is just such a great team. I've got so much confidence in them, and it's just phenomenal. He goes, I've never been as, felt secure about a team that he had. So I was very cool on his part.
You could even tell too, and some of the coaches in the box, they weren't as animated. I mean, they were relaxed too. I mean, there was obviously some closer matches, but I think it goes back to what you said, sportsmanship and, just hardworking kids, and, and they won a lot of matches and they scored a lot of points. And there's something to be said for that. It's the culture, and it takes a lot to change that. And, I think I saw something in the Bismarck Tribune. I looked earlier today that mentioned how many wrestlers he had not too long ago. I mean, he's built that thing into something special, Yeah.
The stats he has, he's won 10 Montana state championships. This is his second in a row, back-to-back, titles at the Rotary. He had, out of his 14, or I can't remember, Montana, they have the 14 weight classes. I know it's a little different. 13. Because they go back to the 98 and 105.
They go to 103 and they don't have 95 and they have 205.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Because their 220 kid was, I think, second ranked in the state at heavyweight.
Okay.
Is what they mentioned, I think, in his profile, whatever.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
And out of those 13, I think 11 of them were ranked 1 or 2 in Montana. So that's pretty good. Imagine stepping into the state finals and you could have 11 guys standing there out of the 13. That would be one heck of a team. And I looked at the top 50 teams in the nation, and they're not marked, but I would say, guess what? They should be in the top 50 somewhere. I noticed a couple of the Minnesota teams, winning the Cheesehead, and the typical. I think Shakopee was way up there, and so was like the Simleys are usually right there.
Windsor actually got in the top 50 right before the invite. They were number 50.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they were at the invite, and they had a solid team. They took some kids out to the Doc B as well, so. They've got some high class kids, for sure.
Definitely. Okay. Well, how about this? Let's switch over a little bit. And with the Rotary stuff, we could definitely talk about that some more as we go. But did you have any chance to look at some of the Letterman stuff?
I did. Lisbon did kind of run away with the Letterman, and what I thought was interesting in that tournament is I think they only had 2 champs. And so that just goes to show the depth that they have in that team. They had maybe a couple other guys in the finals, but they've got just a lot of point scorers. So that was kind of interesting. The other thing that popped out to me is Hare from South Border went down to 160. Ooh, so okay. That actually was kind of an interesting result. And he did win it at 160 over Jordan Sowers in the finals. So that probably those are the main highlights that I saw out of that. And actually, I'm going to bounce back to the Rotary a little bit, because I thought one thing that cannot go unsaid is how dominant Garrett Jangula was. And actually Hare was really gave him a close match earlier in the year at 170 pounds. So I kind of was one. I had no illusions that he was going to lose a match at the rest of this year, but that was a 1 or 2 point match at the early bird. So,
well, I tell you what, it's a challenge because he had Jordan Sauer he had to beat there in the finals there.
Yeah.
He's a returning state champ. So,
right.
I really feel in the back that Jangle is a kid you just don't want to mess with. I wish that if he had some inkling of just being a stud and going somewhere and loving the sport of wrestling, which I know he really likes it and everything else, but there's a love and passion to go to the next level, that he would be a star. He is so good, that Jangula. He just manhandled probably one of the best wrestlers I've seen from Bismarck High in many years and just pinned him like nothing. And he did that to everybody. And
well, that's five first period pins.
Yeah, and I know Troy's dad real well. Wrestled with him as a kid, 1 year younger than me, and man, I would do anything to see that kid on a college wrestling mat. He's that tough.
Yeah, no, he would, but it takes more than talent when you get to that next level, and he has all of it. But you really have to be committed, and I think he just sees that that's not what he wants to do. But it's a shame for me. But
I do have somebody that made a comment here that I was going to mention that too. Another coach right here. I don't know if you can read that on your side, but beating Schmitz from Kindred is a big match too at 120. That is that shows that South Border is ready to wrestle.
Absolutely,
they have a ton of studs. And then when you think about this, Hare and them, he wrestled Sauer earlier too. If you look at that, and then surprising enough, here's another comment. I love it when you guys make comments.
Awesome.
In the duel, and then I didn't realize.
I didn't either until just now. I actually did remember that I did see that Sauer's had medical forfeited there, but I don't know why. But
I tell you what, if it all depends. I haven't seen them wrestle this year. I'd like to see their size. People, could cut the weight and do everything else, but you get that extra after Christmas, those 2 extra pounds. Guy that's weighing mid-60s, wrestling 62 is not that much different,
Right.
Definitely. No, any other things? I know we could talk. I want to talk about the Lettermans more, but let's go back to the Rotary. I didn't ask Tom. Is there anybody that really stuck out to you? You have a little bit different seeing new people.
I was.
Well, how about this? I'll ask you a more difficult question.
Okay.
At 106, I'm going to ask you that just a little bit. What did you think of Bismarck High's 8th grader, wrestling there? Aragio.
Well, and again, you can say 8th grader. A lot of those kids might be supposed to be freshmen, so who knows if he's what age he is? You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, you don't get to pick what age you are. My kid is an 8th grader, wrestled senior, so it is what it is.
Very true.
But he was good. He was tough to get in on early, and I think that kind of changed the match a little bit. But I don't know. Again, I think he won the match for sure. There was a lot of lack of stalling all weekend that I saw. It seemed, and I'm not saying in that match, I'm saying across the board.
No, across the board.
When you ride an ankle all period, or the kid stands up and you throw a leg in, if the leg's not in when you get up, it's supposed to be stalling, or something like that. Yeah, but at any rate, I thought he was good. He's certainly dangerous. He's explosive. The match before that, and watching the kid from Valley City, I was concerned about the semifinal as well. And I thought we wrestled a lot better against him. It seemed like we got in a little bit more, but I think he wasn't quite as big as the other kid as well. But, at the end of the day, it's good experience for us, to get in there and get into some of those tougher matches. And, to be honest, based on our schedule at Stevens, I would argue it's one of the toughest schedules in the state, just traveling outside and seeing kids. And, I think it really prepares you for the end of the year. But at the end of the day, he wrestled a good match. And, it was tough because we've been in 4 finals and 4 tournaments, and we only got man. So
he wanted to just win one to start off the season. You remember that?
that's right. Yeah, and we got the first one, and then we found out it's not going to be easy. So no, it was a good tournament. It was exciting.
No, awesome. No,
yeah.
I was, like I said, my number one thing was watching Sydney. I was impressed on how good they were all the way through. And then after that, Jangula was probably on the top of my list of just watching him just manhandle people and really look, there's something about being a confident wrestler and just going out and having a mission, and that's just going to look like, he goes, guess what? I don't want to wrestle any more than the first period. So I'm just going to take it to you. And that's what he did.
Right. And I mean, I think, Bismarck, there was, I don't know what weight that was, but I think Kelby Armstrong's weight, a couple of those matches of his were really close. I mean, I thought, the finals against Althoff, I mean, there was some really tough calls to make as an official. And, you get to that level of wrestling with those kids and, with everything going on in college and passing legs and stuff, I even, it even happened to my kid this weekend, but you see it more and more often where kid gets a single and the kid's just waiting for the right time to dive for the ankle. You're just seeing a lot more of that. And kids are trying to figure out how to scramble or, how to do that stuff. But, the Barnhart kid.
That was the craziest leg pass match I've seen in high school.
What's that?
That was the craziest leg pass match I've ever seen in a high school match. Those two were on each other's ankles, rolling through and out of position, in position.
Right.
I really was disappointed that the referee didn't call more stalemates. I think he was lost and hadn't seen it himself. Like, at least he didn't jump overboard and call 2-2-2. But it was one of those where I think he needed to stop it at times and say, guess what? That's enough. Where it should be stalemate. And let's start on our feet where you're not just passing ankles each person.
Well, and you're always worried that you're going to get a knee popped or something to go wrong, or you're going to get caught in a pretzel position where you seriously can't move and you get on your back and they're not really sure if you got 2, but you could get stuck. But the Barnhart kid, he looked really good this weekend too. I mean, he looked fantastic and he's got such a motor and he doesn't stop. I mean, he was very impressive. And the whole Bismarck team was super impressive. I mean, top to bottom, there was, but I think they were challenged this weekend too, as we were, and Watertown looked good. They had some kids in the finals. They wrestled tough. And so, at top to bottom, I thought the competition was at a high level. So it was a great weekend. I think of wrestling, especially, the top 6 in each weight class, top 8, there was a lot of close matches. Yeah.
I see South Frank came out on top in that bracket again. I didn't see any of his matches, but I saw the results.
Well, Tanafu kept it a lot closer. In the first period, they did not score. And South Frank had to open it up a little bit. He was all of a sudden kind of stunned. It was a little bit of a Russian tie done to slow him down a little bit. But South Frank's tough. He's going to be tough to beat at 13.
And he had a barn burner earlier against the Watertown kid. It was a close match early in that. And it seemed like, and again, I've watched, we wrestled him last year too in the semis, but he's the type of kid that he scores a lot in the second and third period. It doesn't always score a lot in the first period, but he's almost so strong and big at his weight that he tires you out and then he scores his points, but he's good enough in his technique wise to hold his own and score points. It might only be at 4-1, 4-2, but then he's getting backers in the second and third, and then he's, getting more takedowns. So he's not like one of those kids where you could go out and make it through the first period and think, oh, I got a shot. If you get through the first period, his best is still to come, I think, to be honest with you. That's what I've seen of him. Now he certainly can tech fall and get some kids in trouble in the first period, but you're decent wrestlers. You better buckle up for all 3 because he's going to have it in all 3, and more so probably in the second and the third. The first period, just a warm up. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it seemed like that's when I watch him. It seems like he gets after it in that second and third period. And I don't know if it's a switch or, if he just, kind of feels you out and sees what he can do. But, he's certainly impressive. But, I think there's a lot of kids that were pretty decent that maybe got scored on that probably didn't think they were going to this weekend or, gave up some points.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I'm excited to see him in a Northern singlet next year.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Rocky was there. He was up there. He brought his kid up there, and the Althoff kid is going up there as well. So yeah, they've got a whole stable full of kids.
Yeah.
So
I was impressed with Althoff a little bit more than I was previous. I'd seen him wrestle 2 years ago, but he took a tough loss there in the finals. You don't see there were 7 undefeated wrestlers going in the finals. I think 4 left after even the finals. So
oh yeah. Yeah, he as a smaller wrestler, he was a little bit more Greco and upper body kid, and he developed his on his feet game and getting in and getting takedowns in, and he looked tough, and the kid he wrestled even had a really close match the match before that, which was very close. I don't know.
Armstrong was experimenting going down to 26 for a little bit. And I was going to talk to their coach and probably his dad or anybody a little bit, but I really feel he thinks that 132 is a better shot at winning than going down to Barnhart. I really do. And so he's probably a little small for 32 at this point. And I've talked to his college coach, and he's going to stick right around there anyway. Don't want to lower weight, so
sure.
he's going to Minot State. So
right, yeah, it was boy, those middleweights were loaded with good kids. I mean, it was fun to watch for sure. And being a referee today, and I know they had a lot of younger guys there on Saturday, which was great to get them some experience. But boy, it's getting harder to make calls and to feel like you're right. And I did see some of those conversations, and I talked to Will Morrison from Central, and he said that he went to the Clash, and that was one of the first big tournaments where they conferred a lot with the second official, and they had input where sometimes the trail official, for the most part, is checking for clasping or whatever, maybe doing time. But and I'm not saying that just in general, but it seemed like he said that they conferred a lot more with them and trusted them, which was kind of nice to hear. You know what I mean?
I'll say when we went to the Clash, probably one of the biggest discussions that we had as parents and fans and as coaches was that the officiating at the Clash was the best we'd ever seen in the high school school level.
Will Morrison said the same thing. He goes, that's some of the best officiating. And he goes, and we didn't have the same guys. They rotated through very quickly. And he goes, but a lot of times they were conferring on the fly. They weren't going to slow things down. And, you weren't going to take 5 minutes and, talk about this or talk about that. It was pretty much a quick decision.
Right. They weren't reviewing tape. They just were looking at. They were both actively officiating the match in their own mind, and were able to help when they needed to. Yeah, and they called everything right. I mean, stalling was called stalling, and it was really impressive. I remember having those discussions in Rochester during and after that tournament, and
right. And I'm not on the officiating for this weekend. I mean, for the most part, I think it was good, but I think it's tough to give a stall call, early in the match or whatever, and you change how you referee when you get to the bigger guys, and it's tough, but it's getting harder just based on how much wrestling I think the kids are doing and what they're seeing on TV and on Flow and everything else. There's ways to get yourself out of trouble where in the old days you might just belly out and try to get away, and that's not happening anymore.
No, not all. Yeah, that's one thing I would say that probably was missing, and not that I want a ton more, but controlling the match with a few more stallings earlier would have been better. I really thought that they kind of put themselves in a hole not calling stalling in some of the matches, but it's so subjective, and it has been the whole time I've ever been in wrestling is that stalling call. It's tough to be consistent, and you want the referee to not be the person that controls the match, but kind of judges how it's going. I have had referees that says I am going to call a ton of stalling because I'm going to control the pace of the matches, and that's not their job either. And so it becomes such a fine line, and I know that's probably the toughest call in all of wrestling. So
and I wasn't complaining for sure about my match. I was just saying in general, watching all the matches. Kid's got his head on the mat, for quite a while, and really not moving down there. I think your job's to get down there and bang on the mat, and let him know, hey, you gotta, like my my 12-year-old says to me sometimes when he's winning and on the bottom, Dad, I just got to move my hands around and make myself look busy down there. Yeah, which is, I don't want him knowing that at age 12, but he's been around it long enough where he's seen a little bit of that. So,
So what position do you think is the least amount worked on right now? And you got top, bottom, feet. Where do you think is the least position that you think that people are really working?
Well, and I don't, I'd say bottom. I mean, I think a lot of kids are good on their feet, and a lot of guys are, working, in the last few years, the tilts, and they're really trying to get good at on top. But, I think in the practice room, it's probably harder to work on bottom because if you got a really good kid that's riding you, it's not a fun practice, I mean, and, a stand-up doesn't necessarily work, or reaching back doesn't work, or, a short sit or whatever you're doing, if it doesn't work twice in a row and there's 30 seconds left, you got to try something else. You know what I mean? And I think some kids get really good or think they're pretty good at standing up or tripod or whatever it is, and they live and die by that. And if they can't get away, they just think, well, that's my best move. But, sometimes you got to do something else. And I think, and the bigger guys, it's different. But in the smaller kids and the middleweight kids, I think, some of the guys around here say, if you can't get out of bottom, you can't win a state title. So you're going down. But then we used to joke about, when some teams would take neutral against us, that we just got a point. You know what I mean? It was a free point. We kind of tracked the free points.
Well, I would say that that's an easy answer because you watch them at the next level, and the young guys none of them can get out from bottom. And so we know that that's what's happening in high school. And a lot of the guys that end up at the next level, they can get out from bottom because they're the best athlete in the state, maybe at that level. But they're not pushed that hard. And so our really good guys that you're watching winning the tournaments now, they go to college and they can't get out from bottom. So when you watch those guys on top of someone and they're able to ride a guy, the kid that's not going to go on and wrestle at the next level, they really struggle on bottom. And so I think it really is
well, I'm not
easy answer.
We're all pretty much in the same agreement. But I did notice, over the years, I'm missing people doing a switch. I'm missing people doing a nice sit-out series to a Peterson, a Grant, Peterson roll series. I didn't see the heavyweights side rolls. I didn't see, and I usually catch one a tournament. I didn't see a one in a whole tournament. You got to be kidding me. We had 758 JV matches, and I watched so many kids get ridden out on bottom. And here's what's interesting. In the JV tournament, they went 2-minute first period. So they're stressing on your feet. And then in the second, third period, they're going 1-minute periods. So they went 2-1-1. And I don't know if I agree with that. I saw a lot of kids just hold on and ride for one whole minute and kids not getting away. I was disappointed in that part. And that's kind of why I brought it up, is watching all of these matches. And I know we got to work on our feet, and I know we got to work on stuff on top because we want to be pinners. But if we're not getting kids off from the bottom, I was very disappointed in that aspect, probably in the whole sport as a state, and not just our own coaches or anything like that. I watch everybody. I'm like I've said before, I'm kind of stupid that way. I watch everybody, and I'm a homer for certain teams, but I want to see what's happening out there, because how do you make a sport better for a state is you find those things that people can do. And
the dilemma I think is, and it goes back to, the stall calls I think we talked about. If you got a guy riding the hips and a kid with his head on the mat, who are you going to ding?
Nobody.
I mean, you're not going to ding anybody, and you're 30 seconds into that second period of 1 minute, and now you're not going to hit anybody after that. So, and I'm not saying either way is right or wrong, but I agree with you. And then you probably have some kids that are real dominant that can just put people to their back in a number of different ways and get to the next level, and they can't take anybody down. I mean, they were just that dominant in high school that they get to the next level and they can't even do an elbow pass to get to a leg because, they're shooting to the back leg or whatever it is. It makes it tough. But I think going down on bottom, and getting out is, and like you said, I didn't see as many rolls, kids rolling, through, because a lot of kids are getting caught. And I think some kids watch enough college where they probably think there might be a danger rule and there isn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, in this day and age of what's right in front of you, I think some kids have probably done that less just because they don't see it in college as much per se, because they're worried about getting caught.
Yeah, definitely. Something we can work on. Okay, let's change this up. I know we could talk Castleton a little bit more, but I want to ask a couple college questions. What did you see this weekend there, Bill? You're the man who watches it all.
Yeah.
And, there's some big stuff always happening. Did you catch what was the NDSU?
I did. I caught a lot of stuff, and some I didn't like, and I'm going to be very careful. No,
Yeah.
NDSU got it handed to them by Wyoming. They did have a couple guys out of the lineup. That's not going to make up the difference in the team score that they got beat by.
I saw that.
Fogarty was not in the lineup. They have a really good guy, 157 pounder, that replaced him, but in Luke Weber. Brandon Metz, got pinned in the first period by a guy that he's lost to a number of times, close matches, and it's a winnable match. They're ranked number 25 and number 4 in the country, 24 in the country between the two of them, and Brandon got put in a bad spot, and like a lot of heavyweights, you get to your back, and sometimes it's hard to get off, and he so that was unfortunate. Cam Sikora wrestled a guy that he's had a tough time beating in the past in Montory Bridges. And he's one that I think if Cam can get over, then he'll make the All-American podium.
Yep.
But he struggled. I mean, he didn't struggle in the match. He didn't wrestle a bad match. He just wrestles. That's just a really tough guy.
Right.
And then they did forfeit at 125 pounds.
Again.
And I don't know if McGuire was there, made weight, but I will tell you that the guy that took the forfeit was Doyle Trout, which is still one of the best stories in all of wrestling, right? I'm sure you guys know it, but Doyle was a Nebraska kid, state champ, that committed to Wyoming after his high school season. He maybe prom weekend or something, like April, he got in a car accident, lost a leg, and Wyoming said, "Come to school. We're still going to give you a wrestling scholarship." And he's after spending about a year in the hospital, he showed up out there, and he's wrestling, he's practicing, he's had matches, and he's not their starter at 125 pounds, but he did take the forfeit that day.
I did not know the story. That's
oh,
awesome.
You did not know the story? Yeah. It's really a great, it's a tragic story, of course. I mean, this was a tremendous athlete that was one of the best wrestlers coming out of the state of Nebraska, and he went to Wyoming, and yeah, he had a real bad car accident and ended up losing a leg, and the Wyoming coaches, they just said, that it doesn't matter. We offered you a wrestling scholarship. You come here, you whether you wrestle or not, you're going to go to school for the scholarship that we gave you. So, and he's made the trek back, and he is on the team. He's practicing. He's wrestled matches. He's with one leg. So, and I saw that he took that forfeit, and it kind of brought that back. That was maybe right around 2015 that happened. Okay. So that same team, Wyoming, went from here to Brookings, and South Dakota State beat them. So 17.
Beat you and I.
And we'll get to that too. Yeah. So South Dakota State had a big weekend. Friday night they beat Northern Iowa. What a lot of people would say would be, I don't know, 5, 6 best team in the country. And South Dakota, some really good matches. 149 pounds. Oh my gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. Thompson for Northern Iowa was one of the top ranked kids in the country, and the South Dakota State kid beat him, and that's a good win. So there was a lot of upsets in there, like really a good dual match. But South Dakota State beat Northern Iowa, and then 2 days later they beat Wyoming, who put it on NDSU. So these are really tough, hard fought battles. I watched that South Dakota State Wyoming duel today. And that was a 1-point victory for South Dakota State, but it was really a good duel. Obviously, a very good duel. So that's kind of what happened on the Division I side in our area. The Division II side, big duel last Thursday night. Augustana, Northern State came down to heavyweight. Actually, came down to Northern. If they win that heavyweight match, it's going to be a tie duel, and I think we win the criteria because we had a tech fall.
I think that was a jackrabbit that came up from Lewis there.
And but we lost the heavyweight match, and Augustana won that duel, and honestly, we were really flat from 165 on. I thought came out kind of flat, and we won it. We won at 184 pounds, but we gave up a major right at the end of the match. It's just stuff that is hard to overcome in a close match. So close.
Well, I think there was a big fear at SDSU losing Bono. He had developed such a great program, and I tell you what, a few fans are really questioning what they're going to do next because it's kind of the pride and joy in that eastern side of the state he started to make for wrestling. And guess what? It takes a lot of work to do that and to get the right person in there. And so,
Damian Hahn, I think obviously is a really, really good wrestling coach, and I was kind of curious about that also. But one thing I did see today watching that, and I went to a handful of South Dakota State duels that last year that Bono was there, and it's a great atmosphere. And honestly, it's a way better atmosphere than going to an NDSU duel. I know that they've gotten better since they've gotten to the Shields, the Shack in Fargo. But looking at that duel today, it just from watching it on video, it looked like they had a packed crowd and they were loud and somewhat rowdy and obnoxious, and that's a good thing. So Damian, and if you get wins over Northern Iowa and you get wins over Wyoming, those fans are going to keep coming. And
we actually, our coach Travis King, he wrestled there. He was a national champ there. And before we went to Madison, he actually, for a surprise, took all the kids up to the Minnesota duel. So that's about 30 or 40 minutes away. So that was my son's first college match that he got to see, and to see the Minnesota kids, and there's some good kids on that team as well, and they got to go to that duel, and they had a great time. So it was kind of a nice treat for them to go watch, what it's like to wrestle in college and the atmosphere. And so they took, 15, 16 kids up there and coaches, and they got a chance to watch them a few weeks back, which was pretty cool, because
that was a fun duel. I mean, there was good matches there that South Dakota State lost that were good matches.
That super death, the 25-pounder, my son texted me right after it. He's like, "Dad, did you see that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was pretty good." Yeah.
Yep, that was pretty good. That was a really good duel. And that's a great thing to do. And I love it when these high school teams can show up at college duels. I think it's tremendous for the kids. I know that the season's packed up and it's busy, and it's really hard for people to be, and I said this a week ago, I think that it's hard to be a college wrestling fan and a high school wrestling fan because everything kind of runs together. And but the more that we could bring these high school kids to the college matches, whether they're Division II or Division III or Division I, the better chance we're going to see those high school kids wrestling in college.
When we actually had a chance to wrestle before that duel that night, but it would have been a triple weigh-in for us, which would have been difficult. But I know, like the Northern Augie duel, they had Custer and Canton, the high school teams,
before
that duel, which was kind of cool to bring those kids in. And it looked like a full house in there. I didn't get to start watching until about 57 after I got out of the Rotary, but when I got back to the hotel, etc. But that looked like there was a good crowd there, a pretty lively crowd.
It did, and I've been to that duel before where it was pretty sparse. So, and they really do only have, seating on one side. So everybody you saw in the video was pretty much who was there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I've seen that be a lot smaller crowd. So, I said the same thing when I watched it. They looked like a pretty good crowd. And then I remembered they had the high school match, and that really helps.
Yeah.
I know a few years ago, Morehead State had a duel. They dueled Concordia at Morehead State, and they had Fargo Davies, Fargo, and Moorhead High wrestled that night at the same time. And
well,
I think
when Bono was there, he got Nash up there to wrestle a match. They did a duel up there at South Dakota State before a college duel, which was pretty cool. And I think I think we can even trickle that down. It's harder to do at the high school level, but to get a middle school duel before your high school duel, and there's some teams around here that can make it work. That's even cool. You get butts in the seats, you get grandparents there, you get 10 weights or 15 weights of kids or match them up. It's just harder with the basketball teams and getting gym time and stuff, but that's a way to grow the sport.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, any surprises in that Wisconsin-Minnesota duel besides Moran, which we talked about last week?
There were not a whole lot of surprises. And Webster winning, I think, was probably key to that duel going the Gophers' way at 184 pounds. He looked tough. I mean, he's tough to score on. He's a good kid. He's a good wrestler. That's another one that I've kind of watched through the years because him and Billy used to end up in the same brackets at Northern Plains and stuff. So he was we wrestled him pretty good in freestyle and he thumped us in Greco. So he's a good athlete. Just somehow got a lot bigger than we did. I don't. But that was kind of one that I thought went the other way. I thought Patrick McKee looked awesome. That Eric Barnett from Wisconsin is really good. It was a pretty fun match.
Maybe wrestling every day pays off.
Well, I'm sure it does. Yeah, it's because he's not ever going to take a break. So, that'll help. Let's see who else. McKee and Moran. I tell you, I saw Moran wrestle a match today that was pretty interesting. He wrestled Chad Redd at Nebraska, and that was I watched the entire match, and there was about 30 seconds left, and Redd was behind by 1, and you would have sworn he was ahead by 10. I mean, Moran could barely get back to the center. He was hurting. Something was hurting, and then he ends up getting a takedown in a cradle and put him on his back, and Moran wins the match. I mean, he was winning the match anyway, and it seemed like it was completely controlled by Redd. But Moran is one just like McKee, can score points in bunches. So, but going back to that other match, the other one, there was obviously the heavyweight was kind of a fun match. I look forward to that. I think that's the kind of guy that can wrestle with Gable just because he's real athletic. He's real, he's really pretty quick. He's really good on top.
Right.
And Gable has shown a little propensity to be, I don't know, not interested to wrestle from the bottom position. So Gable didn't do that day. I mean,
he looked quick on his go behind. I mean,
yeah. Oh, So, that it was a fun duel, a good duel. And Wisconsin did beat Nebraska today. So, and Nebraska's another one that could get a team trophy. So that's those.
Well, it's been changing whatever rankings you look at. No, Nebraska and Minnesota both have been peaking in that 3 range. And so, like we mentioned before, they're kind of battling for that third because it's going to be battling 1-2 for Iowa, Penn State, and then third you got to go Nebraska and Minnesota, and it all depends on how things work out come Big Tens and everything else in the Big 12s. And so you never know.
Yep. Probably should throw in Minot State had that duel in Sydney on Thursday night against Montana State Northern, and did come back and win that duel. So that was that was like we talked about. I think they may have had a high school match there beforehand too, but they did duel at Sydney, which I think is a great idea. And
which is odd because the high school team had to get to Bismarck.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know for sure if they had that duel on Thursday. If they dueled, if there was a high school duel, I kind of assumed there was going to be, and I still think there was, but I don't know that for sure.
Probably did, and then just hopped on the bus and came to Bismarck.
Yeah. So Minot had a nice duel win. And the other buddy in the area, Moorhead State dueled Southwest Minnesota State on Saturday. and came out on the wrong end of that one. Actually, Southwest Minnesota State out of Marshall had a really good weekend. They beat Northern on Friday. Northern looked terrible. I mean, it was just not ready to run. And we didn't have a full lineup. I mean, we had a full lineup, but Billy got hurt on Thursday night. Didn't wrestle Saturday or Friday night. And so we had a back in at 65, a backup in at 65 that battled, but he's a 57 pounder that lost. But I'm going to give a shout out. Kenny Jones from Northern State had 2 matches on one Thursday, one Friday, and 2 SIC opponents, and had 2 tech falls. So that was a great weekend for Kenny. I think he's really starting to click right now. Kenny's a senior this year, so he's been a 33 pounder the last couple of years. Fought some injuries at times, and actually had a probably his signature. I mean, loss of the year was Mason Schultz. Kind of handled him in the duel, and then since then Kenny's really looked good. He tech fouled that kid from Southwest Minnesota State on Friday night, and then Saturday that kid came around and beat Mason. So that's kind of how this conference goes.
Well, I tell you what, Bill, you amaze me on how much you can keep in your head. Because I tell you what, like you said, your college knowledge is phenomenal. I have to really dig deep because I looked at all the college results and I knew some of that, but man, that's pretty good. Thanks again, Bill. That's awesome.
Well, there were some other things that happened. Your Iowa State, your University of Iowa team won 2 duels, like 41-0. Yeah, they won two shutouts. So they look pretty good again against Purdue and Indiana. But those are all Division I college athletes. So
and they pulled a red shirt.
They pulled a red shirt. We talked about this last Wednesday night at 184 pounds. Did not know who they were going to wrestle. They had 2 guys in there. And neither one of them are in the lineup. They pulled Aba Saad's red shirt at 184 pounds, and he came out and won both those matches this weekend. So I think he is their best wrestler at that weight class. I think Nelson Brands is really, really talented, and he's going to be really good at 174 pounds when Michael Kemmerer leaves. But he's not quite big enough to wrestle 184, and they know they need every single point they can get to win the national tournament, and they may win. Maybe they end up winning it by a bunch, but I don't think Tom Brands is leaving anything to chance. I think they are the favorite, and they are gonna put all hands on deck.
Well, I took you for a suggestion to go to Wrestling Changed My Life podcast.
Yeah,
listen to 3 of them, and all of them were good.
Yeah, they all are pretty dang good.
And I tell you what, suggest that to anybody else. That was awesome.
Yeah. We went to Bozeman a couple weeks ago, by the way, and there's a kid out there committed to Iowa, Leaf Schroeder. Schrader. So we got a chance to see him wrestle and some different kids out in Montana. So that was interesting. But he's an Iowa commit and a 3-timer going for his 4th this year out in Montana from the Bozeman area. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple kids I got to see this weekend. I'm sure you've seen it at Gillette in the past. 2 Jeffries kids.
Oh yeah, yeah.
One wrestled for Augie on Friday, Thursday night, and then I think the other one must be at Wyoming. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. He's at Wyoming. Yeah.
So that was kind of fun to see.
Those were always the kids that you didn't want to be at their weight when we dueled Campbell County.
Right. Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah,
or at the invite. They won a lot of invite titles, or they were in the finals, and they're pretty hard-nosed kids, like a lot of those Wyoming kids. They're tougher than nails.
Yeah. Just kind of an update at Penn State. They did. They actually had a makeshift lineup together on Friday night against who the heck was that duel against? Illinois. And Roman Bravo Young did wrestle at 33, and Vincenzo Joseph did not wrestle at 65, and they kind of were in danger of losing that duel, but they did end up winning it. But Shakir Rashid came out and wrestled at 180 or 197. And Seth Nevels came out and wrestled at heavyweight, like Cale had said they were going to do. Shakir won, not a real inspired match, but he won. But he did lose today. They're still going to be struggling a little bit. I think Shakir's going to be fine, and he'll be probably a placer at 197.
And the Iowa kid left.
And the Iowa kid Brody Teskey left. He's in the transfer portal, so he might be showing up at a 133 or 125 pound bracket near you. So I don't know. We could use him at NDSU. I guarantee you that. So everybody wanted him when he came out of high school. I'm gonna guess he ends up at Northern Iowa or possibly Iowa State. I don't, he was, and maybe he's not a 25 pounder. Maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe he's, a lot of these kids come out, they look like lifetime 25 pounders, and then after a year or two, 25 seems pretty tough. So, but he left, and they picked up another pretty good kid, Busiello. But it'll be interesting here the next 6 weeks or so, I suppose. But
it's going to be fun. Well, guys, we've hit that hour mark right about. And I said I was going to try to keep it a little shorter, but I know we could talk again forever. Let's just keep some more, some of this good stuff for Wednesday and Sunday. If you want to come on again, feel free. I know Bill and I, we're going to do our best to get on when we can.
Yeah.
And keep updating you. I know we got some big duels coming up. I know Minot this week goes against Bismarck High. I know that Century's got a couple big duels. And so I know Class A will be rolling on the west side. It's probably in South Dakota. Where are you guys at next week?
We're in Mitchell with, Mitchell, Watertown Pier. There's a couple B schools in there. So it'll be interesting. It's usually like 10 guys or 10 teams, I think. So there'll be probably 8 mans, couple pigtails. Nice little one-day tournament. So it should be good. Sturgis will be there as well. So it's I don't know. It's that time of year where, you really gotta win your matches because they're mattering now because you're not sure if you're gonna see them again. So,
yep. Oh, definitely. Yeah. When you see competition for the first time on one side of the state, it makes a huge difference. It does depend. Anything else coming up this week, Bill? Do you know?
This week on the Class B side, it's I think a little bit late, but I will say on Saturday will be that. First time we've had Class B JV state tournament. They're calling it in Carrington. So I will be very interested to see how many kids we get to show up and who's all there.
I wish we had one of those.
This is the first time deal, and you know what? One thing that happens, and obviously on the Class A side, is you get some really good Class B or JV kids that they can wrestle unattached at the regional and state tournament. That doesn't happen in Class B. It should, it doesn't. So this gives another opportunity for the JV kids to have a good showing here at the end of the year. So that'll be going on Saturday at Carrington. Carrington is pretty well off the rest of the week. And I looked around. I didn't see a lot, between now and, we get back on Wednesday, we'll kind of look and see what's going on there. I'm sure there's some duels on Thursday. So I don't know a whole lot there. Mary will be at Northern State for a duel this weekend, as well as Upper Iowa at Northern. So those are, 2 real good, tough duels. I don't know, how those all shake out, but they're always pretty hard fought. Mary went out to the national duels in Kentucky this weekend. They went 1-2, had a real nice win, I thought, over Lindenwood. But they lost 2 duels in their bracket, but they're a little dinged up right now too. So that's besides that, there's a big freestyle tournament up in, men's and women's and maybe Greco too going on in Rome this weekend. So pretty much a lot of our top guys, a lot of the top guys are going to be there. So we'll probably touch on that on Wednesday night, kind of how that's going or how that finishes up. But a lot of fun stuff. So it's a great time to be a wrestling fan.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Well, guys, that is about our hour mark. I'm just going to say thanks again, Tom, anytime. It's always
thank you.
Bill, same with you. Anytime you need anything, holler. Guys, everybody that's watching this tonight, I do appreciate it. Go and subscribe on Dakota Grappler. Still need a lot more subscribe people, so you click the bell so you know we're coming on. I'm still putting them on Facebook. We get a lot of people from there. Videos reaching, anywhere from 200 to 300 a week on Facebook, and then also, repeated stuff on YouTube, another, a couple hundred. But I still would like it a little bit bigger, just so people go that way. I know. Got one more thing coming up. Somebody says Rugby Panther invite, Class B at DL, St. Mary's, Turtle Mountain. Tons of stuff. Kelly, thank you for coming on and watching. Another great coach. I always want to get him on. I haven't had him on yet. I've got several coaches. If you want to come on, I had this link up top here. I'd love to talk to you, Kelly. Next time I'll put that link. You can click right on so you can remind me of all the stuff we miss.
I would be remiss not to mention, too, that Hupmaker went ahead and extended and broke the streak for Mr. Lewis. So he's at 50-plus now. Because Kellen had a couple majors, but Kellen is a great wrestler coming up north, I think. So, he's dominating in South Dakota right now, but so is Nash. And so he's going to try to keep that streak going. It looks like he survived his little hamstring scare in Madison, which was kind of scary when he pulled that against the Omaha Central kid.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got that going, and good for him. We're excited for him. And, we'll see how many he can get here.
Oh, I tell you what, all the way through the state championship, I'm thinking.
Yeah, good chance.
Wouldn't that be unbelievable? End with pinned all the way to the end. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, like I said, thanks again. Promote the sport of wrestling, and that's what I'm asking for. Okay. Have a great night, and God bless wrestling.
Thank you.